What if I told you that the most powerful women in history were Muslim? What if the religion you think chains women actually created the world's first female billionaire, the first female university founder, and some of the most badass queens who ever lived? I'm about to blow your mind with some facts that will make you question everything you've been told about Islam and women. But first, let me tell you about the day I almost got my ass kicked by a Muslim girl. I was 19, sitting in my college cafeteria, being an absolute idiot. This Muslim girl in hijab was sitting alone, and I, being the enlightened feminist I thought I was, decided to save her. I walked over and said, "Hey, you know you don't have to wear that thing, right? This is America. You're free here." She looked up at me, put down her book, which was Advanced Quantum Physics, by the way, and said, "Excuse me?" I doubled down like the moron I was. The hijab. Your husband or father probably forces you to wear it, but you have rights here. You can take it off. What happened next changed my life forever. She stood up, and this girl was tall, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "First of all, I'm not married. Second, my father would probably prefer I didn't wear hijab because he's not even Muslim. Third, I chose to wear this. And fourth, I have a full scholarship to MIT for my PhD in nuclear engineering. So tell me again about my rights?" Then she dropped the bomb that shattered my world. Do you know that 1,400 years ago, when your ancestors thought the earth was flat, Muslim women were running international businesses, owning property, and leading armies? I was speechless. She continued, "Let me guess. You've never actually studied Islamic history, have you? You just watch the news and assume you know everything?" She was right. I had no idea what I was talking about. So I did something crazy. I decided to prove her wrong. I was going to research Islamic history and show her how wrong she was about women's rights in Islam. What I found nearly gave me a heart attack. The first thing that hit me was this woman named Khadijah, Prophet Muhammad's first wife. But she wasn't just any wife. She was his boss. This woman owned multiple businesses, employed hundreds of people, and was so wealthy that she was basically the Jeff Bezos of 7th century Arabia. And get this, she was 15 years older than Muhammad, and she proposed to him. Wait, it gets crazier. When I dug deeper, I found out that in pre-Islamic Arabia, baby girls were literally buried alive just for being female. When Islam came, it didn't just discourage this episode, it made it punishable by hellfire. The Quran literally asks these murdered girls on Judgment Day, "For what crime were you killed?" But here's where my mind was completely blown. In 622 AD and MSE, that's 1,400 years ago, Islam gave women the legal right to own property and businesses, inherit money and land, initiate divorce, keep their maiden names, get an education, refuse marriage proposals. Meanwhile, in civilized Europe at the same time, women were literally considered property. They couldn't own anything, couldn't divorce, couldn't inherit, couldn't even choose who to marry. I'm sitting there reading this thinking, this has to be fake. There's no way. So I kept digging, and I found Fatima al-Fihri. In 859 AD, this Muslim woman founded the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Morocco, the world's first university that's still operating today. While European women weren't even allowed to read, Muslim women were founding universities. Then I discovered Aisha, the Prophet's wife, who became one of the greatest Islamic scholars in history. She taught thousands of students, including men, and her legal opinions are still studied today. Or Nusayba bint Ka'ab, who fought in battles alongside men and saved the Prophet's life. But wait, there's more. I found out about Razia Sultana, who ruled the Delhi Sultanate in the 13th century, or Safiye Sultan, who basically ran the Ottoman Empire, or Queen Amina of Zazau, who conquered territories and built cities. These weren't exceptions, they were the norm. But here's the kicker that made me realize I'd been completely brainwashed. When Islam spread to different cultures, It encountered local traditions that had nothing to do with Islamic teachings. In some places, these cultures were already oppressive to women. Instead of Islam changing the culture hijacked Islam. It's like this. If you take a beautiful sports car and crash it into a wall, you don't blame the car manufacturer. You blame the driver. The same thing happened to women's rights in Islam. The teachings were perfect, but some people crashed them into their backward cultural practices. Modern proof? Look at Muslim-majority countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and Turkey. Women are doctors, engineers, prime ministers, CEOs. Malaysia's central bank is run by a woman. Bangladesh has had female prime ministers for decades. Then I started talking to actual Muslim women who converted from other religions. I met Sarah, a former Catholic who became Muslim after her divorce. She told me, "Christianity taught me to be submissive and accept whatever my husband did. Islam taught me I had rights and could demand respect." I met Dr. Jennifer, a former atheist professor who converted after studying medieval history. She said, "When I compared how women were treated in Islamic civilization versus medieval Europe, there was no contest. Muslim women had rights that European women wouldn't get for another 1,000 years. But the moment that changed everything was when I met Amina." Amina was a successful lawyer from New York who converted to Islam 5 years ago. I asked her why she would choose a religion that I thought oppressed women. She laughed and said, "Before Islam, I was a slave to society's expectations of how I should look, dress, and behave to get male approval. After Islam, I realized my worth wasn't determined by men's opinions. The hijab freed me from the male gaze. Now, I'm judged by my intellect and character, not my appearance." Then she said something that hit me like a truck. The same society that claims to liberate women also objectifies them, pays them less, and judges them primarily on their looks. At least Islam is honest about valuing women for who they are, not how they look. I realized she was right. Western society talks about women's liberation while simultaneously creating billion-dollar industries based on women's insecurities about their appearance. So here's the challenge that hijabi girl in my college cafeteria gave me 7 years ago, and I'm passing it on to you. Don't take my word for it. Don't take anyone's word for it. Go study actual Islamic history. Read what the Quran says about women. Talk to actual Muslim women, not what politicians say about them, but what they say about their own experiences. Ask yourself this: if Islam really oppressed women the way media claims, why do women make up 70% of converts to Islam in the West? Why would educated, free women voluntarily choose oppression? After 2 years of research, talking to hundreds of Muslim women, and studying Islamic law, I came to a conclusion I never expected. The evidence was overwhelming. Islam didn't oppress women. It liberated them 1,400 years before the West even started talking about women's rights. The religion that I thought was backward was actually 1,400 years ahead of its time. So one day, sitting in my apartment, with no pressure from anyone, just the weight of evidence and the peace I felt in my heart, I said these words: "I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." And just like that, I became Muslim. That hijabi girl from my college cafeteria, she's now Dr. Zainab, and she's one of the leading nuclear engineers in the country. Oh, and she's happily married to a guy who supports her career completely, because that's what Islam actually teaches. Look, I'm not here to convert anyone. I'm just sharing what I discovered when I stopped believing stereotypes and started studying facts. Maybe you'll reach the same conclusion, maybe you won't. But at least you'll know the truth instead of living on assumptions. If this video opened your eyes, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this. The truth about women in Islam has been buried under centuries of cultural distortions and media bias. Are you brave enough to dig it up? Thanks for watching, and peace be with you all. Oh, and if you think this was mind-blowing, Wait until you see my next video about how a 7th century book knew scientific facts that we only discovered in the 21st century. Trust me,